Manchester City cannot ignore Bernardo Silva's record in Grandad frustration. Bernardo Silva came in for criticism for his attacking contribution on Wednesday, but Manchester City's record when he plays is excellent. Pep Guardiola referred to Bernardo Silva as a grandad last week, and more Manchester City fans are increasingly viewing the captain as a crutch holding up their attacking play. Silva was stationed out on the right wing again for the 2-2 draw with Monaco, and it feels notable this season that attacks down that side just do not have the same verve when that is the case. It isn't Silva's fault, but he is probably better off in a more defensive role if he is to be used, and in matches where City don't finish their chances, such as Wednesday night, the scrutiny on what Silva offers in the final third increases. Not everything is as it seems though. Silva may have obvious limitations in that role, but the team have had serious problems without him this season. When Silva has been on the pitch, the Blues have an aggregate score of 12-2. That includes the recent run against United, Napoli and Arsenal, but he also avoided the collapses against Tottenham and Brighton. Spurs felt particularly telling. After a 4-0 win over Wolves on the opening weekend, Ryan Cherki was rewarded with a start instead of Silva, but the balance was off and the Blues were 2-0 down by the time Guardiola summoned his skipper. You could argue that the tie had already turned a week later at Brighton for another of the worst team performances, but they had actually played well in the first hour, and it was 1-1 when Silva went off. Without Silva, City's record in the Premier League and Champions League is 4 goals scored and 4 goals conceded. A case could be made that a better attacking player in Silva's role would have done better, yet Cherki and Omar Marmoush have been injured, and Savinho and Oscar Bob haven't really taken their chances when given the opportunity. Silva could also be pushed inside, but then Tijani Reinders and Phil Foden are much better in the middle, and nobody has been knocking on the door to challenge for their place in the team either. Silva doesn't have Jeremy Doku's step-overs or Foden's pace to unlock defences, and it will always feel like he is, to use a word that has followed Arsenal around recently, a handbrake in the team or a safety mechanism for Guardiola to ensure protection for the control and possession that he wants. But is that a bad thing? The manager does not want to turn City into a team built solely for the counter-attack, and Silva is one of the best players for recycling balls and controlling tempo. Then there's the leadership he brings. Is it a coincidence that the team have never gone behind with Silva on the pitch this season when he sets the standard with his commitment and captaincy? Possibly. And it is hard to give Silva all the credit for their significantly better record with him than without him, given the way goal machine Erling Haaland has started the season. He probably deserves more than he is currently getting though, because it is hard to argue against Silva's contributions, enabling the team to be better. That is an underrated value, and especially when there are no teammates making a compelling case at the moment that they can make a better job. Silva will never be an exciting right winger, but he is currently helping to provide the stability that brings wins. Manchester City given Rodri reassurance but 4 players to miss Brentford, despite training boost Manchester City injury latest, as Pep Guardiola provides an update on Rodri following the 2-2 Champions League draw with Monaco. Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola confirmed Rodri was replaced against Monaco in the Champions League to manage his minutes rather than a fresh injury. The 29-year-old sat out the weekend Premier League win over Burnley with pain in his knee, having missed most of last season with a serious knee injury. He returned to the side in France, but was replaced on the hour by Nico Gonzalez. But Guardiola, who said in the build-up to the European tie that he doubted Rodri could play 3 games in a week, said there were no issues with the midfielder ahead of this weekend's Premier League trip to Brentford. Here's the latest City injury news. The Spaniard played against Monaco, completing 60 minutes. Guardiola warned that the 29-year-old is not currently fit to play enough to play 3 games in a week, having felt pain in his knee after doing just that earlier this month. But speaking after the game, the City chief was positive on his star man. The Uzbekistan international had made the right-back spot his own in the past few weeks, with 3 successive starts in that position. But he was forced off injured at half-time in the draw with Arsenal and is unlikely to return before the international break. Marmoush suffered an injury in the 4th minute of Egypt's goalless draw with Burkina Faso in September. He tried to carry on, but was withdrawn 5 minutes later. He returned to Cairo on crutches and underwent a scan in Egypt to assess the extent of the damage. City have since confirmed the 26-year-old will be out for a few weeks, and while they were hopeful he could return prior to the international break, it is understood he is targeting the Everton game when the Premier League returns from a 2-week hiatus. The France international returned to training with City on Tuesday, but is not yet ready to return and did not travel for the Monaco match. He will not be risked for the weekend trip to Brentford either. The view within City remains that the clash with the Toffees 2 weeks later is his more likely return date. Aït-Nouri suffered an ankle injury in the early stages of his home debut against Tottenham. The £31 million summer signing from Wolves played against Brighton, but did not join up with the Algeria squad for their World Cup qualifiers against Botswana and Guinea earlier this month. The Algerian is not expected to return to training until the end of the October international break at the earliest. That could potentially put him in the frame to face Everton as he aims for a return to action next month.
Manchester City player ratings versus Monaco, with 3 6 out of 10s, as Erling Haaland. Good Manchester City player ratings from their Champions League game with Monaco, as Erling Haaland scored twice in a 2-2 draw. Manchester City were pegged back twice by Monaco in the Champions League, with a late penalty denying them a win. The Blues were not at their best in the Principality, although Erling Haaland was close to his and scored twice. City felt like those goals should have given them the win, but Monaco kept themselves in the game and were rewarded late on when Nico Gonzalez was adjudged to have kicked Eric Dier with a high boot challenging at a free kick. Dier picked himself up to earn his team a point.
Bernardo Silva clear on his future as hint dropped with Manchester City contract ending. I know. Manchester City midfielder Bernardo Silva was asked about his future with less than 12 months remaining on his contract. Bernardo Silva has already decided whether he will be leaving Manchester City next summer when his contract runs out. The 31-year-old was made captain by Pep Guardiola this season as the manager looked to restore some aspects of leadership that he felt had been lost last year. Kyle Walker started the campaign as skipper, but left in January to join AC Milan before moving to Burnley in the summer, and his replacement Kevin De Bruyne struggled with injuries. Silva earned more respect from his manager for never going hiding during City's slump in form last season, and is putting everything into getting the team back to where they want to be. 3 points in Monaco on Wednesday will give them 2 wins from 2 in the Champions League and give them the best possible start as they look to avoid the embarrassment of failing to make the knockout rounds last year. However, it is unclear how long Silva will be sticking around for. His contract runs out in 2026. He has long been linked with a return to boyhood club Benfica, while this week there has been speculation about a move to the Saudi Pro League. Silva said that his mind is made up, but he will be putting his energy this season into getting City back to where they need to be. I know exactly what I'm going to do, but it's not the time to talk about it. It's time to focus on Man City, to try to do my best to try to put the club back where it belongs, he said on his return to former club Monaco. We know that we've had a lot of captains who have left in the past, but it's the guys who have the most experience to pass it to the young guys, and hopefully they will be the next ones to pass that experience. I'm focused on doing a proper season with Man City and doing as well as possible to perform and bring back the team to the level it deserves to be. As first captain, you need to make sure that some things don't happen and create that kind of environment. But what we see and what we saw in the past in this group is great characters. And that's what you need. My job now is to try to create that energy and chemistry back as a group of captains, so people behave in the right way in training and games, arrive early, train properly, take care of themselves. That's our job. But in terms of responsibility, you need more than just 1 or 2 or 3. We were really good in the past because we had 10 or 15 players like that behaved as captains, and that's what you need. Manchester City confirmed 21-man squad for Monaco trip as Rodri and Ryan Cherki. Decisions made. Manchester City have selected a 21-man squad for the Champions League trip to Monaco, and Pep Guardiola had a decision to make on Rodri. Rodri is set to feature for Manchester City in Monaco after the midfielder was included in Pep Guardiola's 21-man squad for the Champions League fixture. The 29-year-old felt pain in his knee on Friday that forced him out of the Premier League win against Burnley and set off fresh fitness fears, with the issue affecting the knee in which he suffered an ACL injury last September. but Rodri came through Tuesday's training session without any issues and is fit enough to be part of the squad that flew out to the French Riviera on Tuesday afternoon. Ryan Cherki also made his return to training on Tuesday after recovering from a thigh injury, but the £34 million summer signing isn't included in the matchday squad. Cherki hasn't played since August 23rd and returned from injury earlier than expected. City will continue to build up his fitness carefully, and the France international could feature against Brentford on Sunday. Mateo Kovacic is included, however, and the Croatian could make his first appearance of the season after surgery on an Achilles injury picked up in May. Kovacic was on the bench against Burnley at the weekend but didn't get on the pitch. Teenager Divine Mukasa is also in the squad for the league phase fixture at the Stade Louis II, as he continues to become a key fixture in the first-team squad, but there is no place for Emilio Lawrence, the 20-year-old who trained with the senior setup on Tuesday. Manchester City handed major double fitness boost ahead of Monaco Champions League tie. Two Manchester City players returned to training on Tuesday to hand Pep Guardiola a boost ahead of the Champions League trip to Monaco. Manchester City have been handed a major fitness boost after Rodri and Ryan Cherki returned to training ahead of the Champions League trip to Monaco on Wednesday. Rodri